The only way to get around the dollar is to go underneath it in the pyramid. You can't go above it. Other foreign currencies are above the dollar because they maintain exchange rates with the dollar. Whether those trades are settled in the end in US dollars or not doesn't make a difference. Yes, the dollar is going to die. It is going to die soon, but it's not going to die on international trade deals. It's going to die in the streets of the US. Hey guys, Rafi here from the Endgame Investor, and today I wanted to go into these supposed deals that are denominated in currencies other than dollars between international players. We've heard news of Brazil and China making deals, or France and the United Arab Emirates, and deals that are denominated in currencies other than the US dollar. Well, I want to put some cold water on this news, and while I am not saying that it's completely insignificant, these deals do not exactly get around the dollar in international trade. I'm not minimizing them completely. They are important. They are important in the sense that they indicate that there is an attempt to get around the US dollar, but these deals will not do it. And in order to understand that, you have to understand what the Bretton Woods system is, what the post-Bretton Woods system is, and why it's not that easy to just escape the dollar as the international currency of the world, or the world's reserve currency. You can't just uproot it through will and denominating your deals in another currency. Yes, the dollar is going to die. It is going to die soon, but it's not going to die on international trade deals. It's going to die in the streets of the US. When consumers who use the dollar for domestic purchases at supermarkets, when they attack the dollar in the street by getting rid of it for whatever they can get, that is when international trade has to change. And how must it change? It must go beneath the dollar in Exter's pyramid. Exter's pyramid shows the monetary pyramid that has been built since the Bretton Woods deal and even the Bretton Woods breakdown. So let's get into the Bretton Woods deal and the Bretton Woods breakdown. Bretton Woods broke down, what was it, 1971. Bretton Woods was a deal that was formulated in 1946, broke down in 1971. And what it basically said was that other currencies could demand gold for their dollars at $35 an ounce, but they would store dollars in their central banks, in their respective central banks, instead of gold itself. And that is how the dollar became the reserve currency of the world, because countries used the dollar to back their own currencies, knowing that they could get gold for their dollars. And so the dollar became the reserve currency of the world because other countries started to stack dollars in their central bank basements. After 1971, when that deal no longer held and you could no longer redeem dollars for gold, the countries, the foreign countries that still had dollars. They didn't get rid of them. They didn't exchange them for gold at whatever exchange rate they could get. They just said, oh, well, I guess we're stuck with these dollars now, so we'll just continue trading. And that's what happens. So you have the skeletal structure of the Bretton Woods system without the content, without the gold content of it. But the dollar remains the reserve currency of the world. And I'll show you a few charts that prove this. First of all, this is an Excel spreadsheet of the world currency composition of official foreign exchange reserves. This just came out on March 31st, so about a week ago. Here I have the percentage of dollar claims of all foreign exchange, of all currencies that exist in foreign central banks, I think. So you have total foreign exchange reserves in foreign central banks of, let's say, it starts here, 2016 quarter one, 10.9 trillion. So let's just say 11 trillion. You have the amount of claims in US dollars, that's 5.08 trillion in 2016 quarter one. So if you go down here, you see that the jiggering that I made here, that shows 46.5% of dollar claims relative to all currencies in the world in foreign central banks. So in 2016, it was 47%. Same here, goes up to about 57%, 58% in 2019. And then it starts going down. And where are we now? We're at 54.09%. So there has been a little bit of a dip from 2019. That's true. It hasn't been a significant dip. And the amount of dollar claims relative to all other currencies is still 54% versus 46.5% in 2016. So the reserve currency status of the dollar has actually risen since 2016. So what this shows is that the reserve currency status of the dollar has actually risen since 2016. Now, what about these deals themselves? When, let's say, Brazil makes a deal to trade in yuan for gas or whatever it is, what is actually happening there? Well, let's go into the article and we'll see. Okay, so we have this article from Barron's, March 29th, 2023. China and Brazil strike deal to ditch dollar for trade. This, I think, is a misleading title, but anyway, let's read the article. China and Brazil have reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the U.S. dollar as an intermediary, the Brazilian government said Wednesday, Beijing's latest salvo against the almighty greenback. China is Brazil's biggest trading partner with a record 150.5 billion what? What is that symbol? That is a dollar symbol. $150.5 billion in bilateral trade last year. So the point is whether they finalize their deals in yuan or real, it always is ended in dollars. For example, how is this possible if they say they're denominating the trade in yuan? Well, let's say somebody sells a house for 10 Bitcoin or whatever. How much is a Bitcoin now? Let's say 10 Bitcoin. Let's say they sign the contract and it takes them about a week to move this Bitcoin. What are they really selling the house in? They're selling it for a dollar amount of Bitcoin. Maybe it's denominated in Bitcoin. Maybe the finalizing of the sale is when the Bitcoin moves from wallet A to wallet B and then the house is sold legally by contract, but they're still selling the house in dollars using Bitcoin as a method to transfer those dollars. Because if they did it any other way, it would be impossible to finalize the sale because Bitcoin changes value, could be 10, 20, 30% overnight sometimes. And so whoever is selling the house in Bitcoin, if the value of that Bitcoin goes down a week after the contract is signed, let's say he has a week to transfer the Bitcoin, he could end up losing 30%. And this is not a way to settle contracts. So what these contracts say is that the house is selling in dollars in the equivalent amount of Bitcoin at the time that the Bitcoin is transferred. And it's the same thing with these trade deals. Why? Because the trade deal might be ended when the yuan is transferred from account A to account B, or the central bank account to account B, or whatever it is. But the end amount of gas being traded is a dollar-denominated amount of gas that is settled in yuan. So I can prove this from the nature of what the yuan is and what the real is. The real is the Brazilian currency. So let's look at these charts. This is the foreign exchange reserves of Brazil, the Brazilian central bank. And we can see here that around 2005, 2006, it really started going up. Around 2007, 2008 financial crisis, that's when dollars got really stuffed in other foreign central banks, and we're still around that amount now. Yes, it has gone down slightly from, let's say, 3.8 trillion to like 3.28 trillion. It's still much more than it was in 2000 when the dollar was much stronger. So the real basically still is a substitute for the dollar. That has not changed. And if you look at the Brazilian real relative to the dollar, the US dollar, the Brazilian real has really weakened substantially since 2011 when the real was worth $1.52 and now it is worth $5.1 per real. So this deal is being denominated maybe in yuan. Now, what is the yuan? The yuan is the other side of this deal between Brazil and China. The yuan trades in a range relative to the US dollar from about what is that? 6 yuan at the lowest, meaning that's the highest strength for the yuan, to about 7.33. So a range of about 6 to 7.33 from 2014 to now. So this exchange rate is preserved and managed by the People's Bank of China, which means that the yuan is a dollar substitute, because if the yuan gets too strong, then the People's Bank of China sells yuan, buys dollars, and keeps it within a range. So again, the yuan is a dollar substitute, and the real has been weakened substantially relative to the US dollar. What about Chinese foreign exchange reserves, the amount of dollars basically that are in the People's Bank of China's basement? Well, yes, that stopped expanding in around 2014, and it looks here that they're keeping $3 trillion as the floor of the amount of foreign exchange dollars that they're willing to sell. And so the yuan is still backed by US dollars to a substantial degree, and the People's Bank of China doesn't seem to want to go below 3 trillion. The point is, you have to understand what a monetary pyramid is. That pyramid was established, the current structure of that pyramid was established in 1946, back when dollars were exchangeable for gold, and that's what incentivized other central banks to hold dollars in their basements. That has not ended. The content of those dollars are now hollowed out for sure, but international trade will continue with the dollar-denominated trades, whether those trades are settled in yuan or real or some other foreign currency. They will always be denominated in dollars, maybe settled in foreign currency terms, whether that be euro or yuan or real, but the amount of goods that you're trading are dollars denominated. For example, $1.5 billion worth of gas paid in yuan or real at the time of settlement. So what will end the Bretton Woods system, or the skeletal structure of the Bretton Woods system? That will be when US consumers dump the dollar in the streets and get rid of it for any amount of real goods or services that they can acquire at the time. Die scream. At that point, then other countries will not be able to use the dollar to trade goods and services at all, and they will have to go below the dollar in Exer's pyramid, which is gold and silver. When you start seeing countries trading in physical gold and silver, that is when you can know that the dollar has died. And that's going to happen pretty quickly once it starts, because once the public attacks the dollar, the US public attacks the dollar in the streets and starts to dump it for any amount of food or basic necessities that they can acquire, at that point, foreign countries are not going to be able to use that currency to execute their trades, and they're going to have to go to gold and silver. The only way to get around the dollar is to go underneath it in the pyramid. You can't go above it. Other foreign currencies are above the dollar because they maintain exchange rates with the dollar. Whether those trades are settled in the end in US dollars or not doesn't make a difference. They are denominated in US dollars because the trades are denominated in dollar terms and not in terms of how much energy. In summation, the dollar is going to die in the streets. It is not going to die over the oceans in international trade. Once it dies in the streets, other countries will have no choice but to move beneath the dollar in trade, which means they will have to trade in gold and silver. There is no other option. And when does the dollar die in the streets? I believe it will be after the next round of printing, which will be triggered by a collapse of the banking system, which could be triggered by a collapse of the commercial mortgage-backed securities market, which is mostly owned by regional banks, which are now in free fall. And so while it is good news that other countries are trying to signal that they want to get around the dollar, it is mostly a red herring, and you have to watch dollar prices of basic necessities in the streets of the United States where the dollar is used as a domestic currency. That will be the signal for the end game, and all this other stuff of trades being denominated internationally in other currencies, that is mostly fake news. If you enjoyed this video, you can sign up for a 2-week free trial of the End Game Investor, link in the description below, or you can get your physical gold and silver with MilesFranklin. Call 855-GAME-END. That's 855-GAME-END, and call MilesFranklin up. I'm not sure if gold will ever go below $2,000 an ounce again. And so you're running out of time to acquire your physical money assets. Or you can become my patron on Patreon, where you get a weekly video of biblical commentary on monetary, economic policy, and governmental topics. Have a good weekend, everybody, and may the dollar die soon.